Welcome to Shelf Help, a channel dedicated to talking to the void about whatever book I happen to be reading. I am your host, the reader. The following review will contain spoilers. Janus is the Roman god of beginnings, gates, transitions, time, duality, doorways, passages, frames, and endings. His name is derived from the Latin word Janus, meaning door. He is also where we derive the name of the very first month of the year, January. This book is about doors. Physical, metaphysical, metaphorical, and magical. Doors that are open, closed, locked, and barred. Every story begins with a door, a moment when a character is forced from the ordinary world and thrust out into adventure. This is usually where the story begins. In this book, it's where the story ends. January is not an ordinary girl. She's a girl of color living in the home of a rich white man as his semi-adopted daughter in the early 1900s. Her father works for Mr. Locke as a treasure hunter and is away a lot. Her mother is presumed dead. At least that's what she's been told her whole life. She dreams of adventure, but also desperately wants to be Mr. Locke's well-mannered, well-behaved, very good girl. It's a lifetime battle. January doesn't fit anywhere, like a puzzle piece that ended up in the wrong box. It's not just that she's a girl of color living like a wealthy white heiress right in the middle of the Jim Crow era, or that she lives in a home stuffed to the rafters with museum treasures and oddities, or that adventure has been curtailed to first-class train tickets and neatly pressed dresses. Something else is different. And she's 9. She runs off while Mr. Locke is in a meeting. She finds a door in a field. She writes herself a small story in her pocket diary and opens the door. She finds herself looking down on an island village of white stone. The moment could have been written off as a case of childhood fancy, except as she returns through the door, she pockets a coin with a depiction of a strange queen. Locke scolds her for running off and for letting her imagination get away with her. Locke scolds her for running off and for letting her imagination get away from her. He takes the little diary and burns it along with the door. After a few days, she places the coin in her jewelry box and puts the incident out of her mind, putting her energy into being a good girl. Years go by before she realizes the significance of this moment, until she receives a small book, the story of a girl, a boy, and a door. This world is full of doors, and that's with a capital D, by the way. They present as physical doorways, perhaps an old archway in a crumbling building, or as a natural formation such as a tangle of roots. Either way, they are places where two worlds resonate and brush against each other. People and objects pass through these doors all the time. An object that may be commonplace in one world may be extraordinary in another. This introduces chaos and change to both worlds. But in January's world, someone is closing the doors. Not just closing them, but destroying them. It is causing the world to stagnate, suppressing revolution and consolidating wealth and power. But what happens to a world without change, where everyone knows their place, and no one ever questions the power structure? I'm sure that would be a very nice world for 1% of people. As I write this, my nation's capital was just invaded by a far-right domestic terrorist group at the behest of a small man desperate to cling to power. At this point, it hasn't worked. Yet. But the Nazis didn't come to power on their first try either. But this isn't revolution, despite what they think. This is the use of chaos and violence to enforce the status quo. It is the powerful using the gullible to further their own ends. Power consolidated in the few will never yield a fair world. And while life is not fair, that does not mean we should just sit back and accept the mistreatment of our fellow human beings and our world to prop up the few. Back to the book. The largest theme of this book is nature versus nurture. January loves adventure. She comes from 2 parents who wandered the world. But her life has sequestered her to Lock House, where young women have to meet certain behavioral criteria. Where she once swam in the pond with the grocer's son, now she waves at him from the window, so long as no one is looking. She reads as a form of escapism, because it's an approved ladylike activity. And when her door finally opens, and she steps from the real world into adventure, she doesn't exactly leap so much as stumble. Her heart desperately wants to run, but her head is holding her back. And other things, but I'm not going to spoil the twist. Nature versus nurture is a long-running debate. How much of who we are as individuals is determined by our genes versus our lived experiences. The problem is, you can't have a fully formed adult who has had no lived experiences. The closest we can get are identical twins raised in different homes. And even that's a little dodgy. And that is not to mention that nature often affects nurture. See the response of the police to peaceful protests by black people versus how they respond to a mob of armed white people invading the Capitol building. January spends a lot of her time fighting her nurture. Not just how she was raised, but the privilege Locke's money and whiteness provided her. Her life has been first-class tickets, not being forced to move to the back of the train. Without him, she's not allowed to sit on a bench, eating on a public street. Once she breaks free of Mr. Locke's hold, she finds she's doing things like she's always done, even though she knows she's not allowed. Which kind of brings us to family. January has a father, but he's always away, so she was raised almost entirely by Mr. Locke. Does she love Mr. Locke? Yes. Does Mr. Locke love her? That's a little more nuanced. Locke's love is conditional on what he considers good behavior, and good behavior is within the strict confines of obedience to him. But he also gives her a lot of chances of redemption, or at least redemption as he sees it, even right up until the very end. And yet, when push comes to shove, she still wants to save him, even after all he's done to her. So is he family? Yes. We all have those family members that we, shall we say, grow apart from because they turned out to be raging assholes. I'm going to put this on my top shelf. It's a slow burn. Most stories step out into adventure early. This one spends the majority of its time waiting for the call to adventure. But it makes that adventure so much better after the slow burn. You feel for the characters so much more, and what they're going through, and what they are willing to do for those they love. Thank you for your time. I know everyone's mileage will vary, so feel free to leave your thoughts.